right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a very sunny San Diego today. And I'm delighted to be joined by Christine Sandman Stone, who is not unfortunately in Chicago, but unfortunately in a frigid Chicago. How you doing, Christine?
I'm doing great. It's a bit gray and definitely a bit cold here, but it's lovely to warm up and talk with you.
Thank you. And you are a seasoned transformation leader, author, and
I am.
pragmatic strategist with over 35 years' experience building high performing technology organizations at global powerhouses like McDonald's, Dell, Volkswagen. And as the founder of Deliver at Scale, you help companies overcome broken rungs in management by fostering effective leadership and operational excellence, and renowned for turning crises into successes and creating value from scratch. Okay, and you are, as we said, based in Chicago. And what I wanted to talk today about was, well, let's start off. We mentioned it in the intro there. This concept of broken rungs in management. I mean, can
Mhm.
you number one explain what they are?
Yep.
Secondly, and follow on, like how do you identify them, and then we'll talk about how we address them.
Okay. It's a great place to start, and I'm taking notes before we jump in so I don't miss something. There are two different contexts of Broken Rung.
Mhm.
The original one was specifically about women and people of color not getting into management ranks.
Right.
McKinsey and Lean In do a study every year. They look at the representation across different management levels, and they identified that a broken rung on the career ladder was a step into management. That
Mhm.
for every 100 white men who get the opportunity, like 87 white women will get the opportunity, even fewer women of color, people of color will get that chance. And so they identified that a barrier to companies gaining strength and really having a diverse and resilient leadership workforce was that rung on the ladder. I would say that there's something new that's happened in the last 5 years or 6 years since the pandemic. And that is that a lot of companies really scaled back on their management
Mhm.
investment. And a lot of people, I don't know about you, John, but during the pandemic, I was talking to my people about things like how their mother was doing in intensive care, or
Mhm.
how is their sanity being in a tiny apartment in Chicago with two toddlers and two parents trying to work on Zoom. And so the muscle of taking care of our people got really strong during the pandemic. And I would say that what I've heard from a lot of people is our muscle around delivering results got weakened a little bit. And you can see that in companies that are trying to force return to office because they're like,
Yeah.
wow, we really need better results. Let's make everybody come back in. I challenge that and say, I don't think it's a place people are working. I think it's the way that their work is being prioritized and managed. So
Yeah.
I think management right now hasn't modernized as quickly as our technology has, as our strategies have. And there's a huge opportunity here.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you, and I particularly on the on what you said. With COVID, everyone went remote. We
Mhm.
actually had already gone remote. We had done it strategically a
Okay,
couple of
great.
years earlier because
Yep,
we decided, to be honest, that we thought it's a strategic advantage for us. Why waste
I
money on
agree.
buildings?
I
Why
agree.
not have access to people wherever they are,
Yep.
and just have the great? And I think you're right, Christine, because I think what companies are missing out on is things are shifting. People are more likely, a lot of people are more likely to choose where they want to live first before they choose where they want to work. Once upon a time, as you know,
That's
work
right.
chose where we lived, right?
That is
I
true.
relocated 4 times in the States, right?
Yep.
I
Yep.
wouldn't do it today. Unless it was, I mean, I would have to have a hugely compelling reason to do it. But today I'd be much more reluctant because I would be like, why?
Right. And there's I'm going to poke at this a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not just about the quality of life where you live.
Mhm.
I would argue it's about, is the company focused on results or
Mhm.
presence?
Yep.
Because I'd argue I've seen a lot of people hang out in offices and get nothing done. I'm sure you have seen that as well. And
Absolutely.
and when we're all focused on results, the answer of where people can be is different. There's no easy
Mhm.
answer. I don't know that all remote works all the time. I don't know
No.
that hybrid's the answer, et cetera. But when we are all focused on results, that gets a little easier to figure out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think once you focus on results, then you come back into that, does
Yep,
technology help us?
absolutely.
How do we
Yep,
need to configure things? Do we I mean, your the work may require you coming into the office sometimes or whatever, or
right,
but to your point, it's focus on efficiency and outcomes and not on, as you said, like stupid metrics, like you're in the office for 10 hours a day or something. Fact
correct.
is, like, half of the day you're doing your Wordles or whatever.
Right. John, back in the day, I won't tell you which company, it was a very large company that I worked for. It was like a point of pride if your car was in the first row in the
Uh,
parking lot, because that showed like that you were committed and everybody knew
mhm.
who each other's cars were, and you could tell like who got in early. And then as people were leaving, they were checking out whose cars were left. And it was the first time that I'd really seen that value of a person's contribution measured by presence. And I could tell you that a lot of those cars were not necessarily belonging to high contributors in the organization.
Yep, absolutely, and I think that's because, I mean, certainly I came to America 28 years ago, right? And I came
Okay.
to Silicon Valley first, and then,
Yeah.
so I've kind of business-wise kind of grown up in corporate America, and let's face it, corporate America, we've always celebrated stress and presence, right? It's the two things. If somebody
Yeah.
is super busy, stressed, then they must be doing, then they're very
Right.
important. If they're
Uh-huh.
there first in the morning, last to leave in the evening, well, they're the most dedicated person
Yeah.
ever. And it's a complete nonsense.
It is one of my I have a bunch of siblings, and one of them calls it the theater of success. Like,
Yeah,
how do you
that's great.
present yourself as a successful person versus like what's actually really happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're 100% correct. I don't think a lot of businesses have thought about the future and how work should be organized and how they can get the best out of people and how they can accommodate what's best for people at the same time what's best for the company,
Right.
and look at things in a and maybe in a more expansive way and stop like looking at these binary choices or whatever of like in
Right.
the office, out of the office, here, remote, whatever. And the other thing I think too, Christine, is this: I've seen companies, and we do it ourselves, like integrate contractors into the company,
Right.
and they're like employees and they're being long term and everything, and they do want to be employees, they want to be contractors, but they also want to feel part of something, so you get the best of both worlds.
I really believe that the most profitable organizations are going to be the most creative ones. That
Hmm.
5 years from now we're going to look back and we're going to look at people who really understood what the critical target was, and then they opened the range and said, "What could we do that gets us to that target?"
Hmm.
Those are gonna be the people that we're gonna be writing, leadership articles about in 5 years. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's it exactly, and I also think one of the other things you mentioned is you start to think about looking at people in organizations, and we had this real middle management thing for years, right? Every organization, you grow to a certain point, and they start bringing in new layers, and before you
Right,
have a whole
right,
bureaucracy
right,
going up. But, but one of the things is, people are often put into middle management with zero management training whatsoever, with
correct.
zero guidance.
Right,
And then they're said, "Hey, Christine, you're going to manage this team now. Well done. You're a model
right,
employee. I
right,
want you
right,
to coach them. I want you to do this." And you're like,
right.
"Great. But last time I coached anything was like, last time it was when I was in high school getting coached on my volleyball team. I don't know. Is that what I do? Do I just shout at everybody?"
Right, right. There's, so I have a two-part answer to that.
Mhm.
Y The thing that you and I have both seen, right, is that a company takes its best salesperson and
Yep.
says, "You should be the sales manager," or it takes the best software developer and says, "You should lead an engineering team." And the skill set of leading a team, it's one thing to hit every one of my targets because
Mhm.
I know what they all are. It's another thing for me to like deliver my own code. I know exactly what that is. But for me to encourage people who are different from me to hit their targets or deliver their code on time is a whole new ball game. And I have the blessing of four very smart children, and one of them called me and said, um, I have 4 weeks to learn how to be a people manager. She had led these big teams to do product design, but she'd
Yeah.
never had people report to her.
Mhm.
And she's like, I basically said, yes, I've led teams before. I wasn't really clear on the fact that they hadn't reported to me. She
Mhm.
said, I got a big job, got people reporting to me. What can I read? I will do anything to be a brilliant manager. I have 4 weeks. And I was like, wow, I had a shelf full of, like, inspiration, Brené Brown, right?
Mm.
Or or theory, like Buckingham or all these others, and a person going into a management job does not need inspiration, they do not need theory, right? Neither of those things are gonna help them. What they really need are practical tactics. So, I started a virtual, collaboration with her, and we she would send me a note and I'd send her answers back. Like, these are the 9 questions to ask your boss before you start. This is what you're looking for when you come in as a new manager. You're there for a reason. Somebody got moved out, somebody got moved up, something
Mhm.
is going on. There are expectations of you as you come in. Figure those out first. But we talked about other things like, how do you structure one on one? Why? Is it just to build a relationship, or is it to build a relationship and manage work outcomes?
Mhm.
And how do you repeat these simple processes that help you be successful? And it turned into a book that's won awards. And it was, I have to say, everyone should work with young, bright people, because she would say, like, it needs to be a paperback, it needs to go in my backpack, it needs to not be time bound. I need to
Mhm.
just be able to bounce around to what I need. And the two of us collaborated, and it was a lot of fun. So I do believe that things like that, where we get really creative about how we help these brilliant people,
And that book is called?
it's called The Modern
Yes,
Management
the
Mentor.
Modern Management
Yeah,
Mentor. Yeah, if you wanna show
that's
it
it.
there, the
Yeah.
Modern Management Mentor. And
Yes.
why I would really highly recommend people to check it out because
Thanks.
what Christine, what you're outlining there is here's the thing, right? Like you said, you're the best person in your group, right? Or you've been there the longest. So
Right.
you're remote, right? One-on-ones. Now you're having one-on-ones with people who were peers last week, right?
Right.
Now now they're looking to you. Now you're like a deer in the headlights and stuff. So I would recommend this because this is what we do in corporate America, or probably throughout the
I
world
agree.
now. We everywhere we promote people into positions and and we don't give them the help they need. And the other part, Christine, which I think is interesting too, is why is management the only career path?
Oh, and the best companies have figured out not to do that.
Yeah.
Um, the best companies I've ever worked for have a point at which your career path forks, and you can either be a brilliant individual contributor. In software companies, we call those principal engineers. So
Mhm.
I'm a person who has a responsibility for a massive piece of intellectual property for my company, but I don't have any people report to
Mhm.
me. And then the other path is people management. And I'm with you because um, the that gives honestly, if you don't like people, you really shouldn't be a manager because it's a lot of work. Like, you have to be interested in human growth and human potential and human adaptation. And it's so hard. Like, if we come into a role with the confidence we had from being the top
Mhm.
performer in our function, it can translate to arrogance in
Yeah.
how we feel that our way is the right way. So I love the paths that have started to come in organizations. John, where have you seen that be most effective?
Well, I think, I mean, well, our organization ourselves, like we do that
Yeah.
because, we're a very focused, like, kind of lean
Yeah.
organization. I
Yep.
haven't seen it very many other places, to be honest, Christine. And this is
Yep.
why it takes me back to, like when I ran companies and stuff, and then I'd have people come in, for their chats. And sometimes
Yeah.
I'd say, and what do you want to do? Like, what do you, where do you see
Right.
yourself? All that kind of stuff. And they would go, well, yeah, blah, blah, I'd like to manage a team next. And
Right.
I would say, why? And they say, "Well, I think I'd be good at managing people." And I think, and I always said, "Do you?" And I said, "Do you know what managing people's like?" And they were like, and I said, "Well, you're part parent, part psychologist. You're the punching bag often behind your back too, and it's and you own their problems whether you like it or not,
Right,
And
right.
I said, if that feels like you, then and you think this is a challenge you can
Yes.
rise to, go
Yeah.
ahead. If not, then I would recommend that you just focus on being the best at what you can do, and
Right.
the opportunities there. But yeah, it just always seems like people are so hung up on that thing, like, I need to manage people in
It's
order to feel like I'm
okay.
important.
Yeah, but I wanna translate. They don't
Yeah.
wanna manage people so they can feel like they're important. They wanna manage people so they can make more money,
Well,
right?
that's it.
That's
Yeah.
that's what a lot of folks are looking for, that compensation projection that's so important over the course of a career, and we as leaders have got to figure out a way to give that to them. Like,
Mhm.
"Yes, I will pay you more as an individual contributor, but your responsibilities have to scale, have to expand, your output has to change." These are healthy conversations we should have with people
Yeah.
about, "Yes, I'll pay you more. I need you to do more."
Yeah, 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 absolutely, absolutely. But like I said, I mean, we're pretty lazy on that. Um, so talk to me a little bit about, because one of the antidotes to this is
Yeah.
obviously mentoring, and you know uh, having either higher up or leaders or whatever, mentoring people into the
Mhm.
when they come into these positions, or coaching them, or even external mentors or whatever.
Yep,
But you also talk about sponsors. Tell me the little bit of
yep.
thing about mentors and sponsors, the difference.
Oh. There's a brilliant woman named Carla Harris, and I have to give her credit. She explained mentors and sponsors in a way that I understood it clearly for the first time in my career, and I wish I would have heard her earlier. She explains that mentors are the people we go to solve problems, right?
Mhm.
We tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly. We might drop swear words. We tell them when we're frustrated. We come to them with a problem, not the answer, and they help us sort it out and collect ourselves and then go back into our teams and our work. Um, because they do that with us, we tell them the good, the bad, and the ugly, she
Mhm.
says. And she says sponsors are very different. Sponsors hold the key to our economic future. They have a voice in whether we get promoted, an opportunity, a new job. And because of that, they have to be confident speaking about our capabilities, which means we have to tell them the good, the good, and the good, right? So it's interesting because as organizations, we kind of want to tell our managers, like, oh, you need to mentor your people. Like, they have to trust you. They have to be able to tell you anything. But then that same manager is usually sitting in a talent roundtable deciding whether that person is ready to be promoted. And if
Mhm.
that person is overshared on their frustrations, manager is going to like rank them as not ready yet, or they might
Mm.
be ready. So I have seen, especially in Chicago, we have a very rich ecosystem of mentoring co-ops around
Right.
the city.
Okay.
And a lot of people seek mentors outside their companies.
Yeah.
And then that way they can, really let it all hang out. And I encourage managers of people to help their people find someone else who does a similar job in a different place so they really can let it all out and get different answers honestly too.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. That's a great distinction. Yeah, and I would absolutely encourage people to go get mentors, and as you
Yes.
said, outside your organization, preferably, because then you have that safety. You
Right.
have that safety,
Yeah.
and I just think that's such a great thing. And I think the other part, sort of, that you touched on there, when on the sponsor side, is one of the things that a lot of managers don't realize is that. The first thing is obviously managing themselves, but managing upwards. To be honest, I honestly think the greatest skill I ever learned when I was throughout my career was the ability to manage upwards.
Right. I would agree. And for so many managers now, they're getting so much pressure. A lot of strategies are very agile and the target moves, every
Mhm.
quarter based on what's going on in the industry, what consumers need. And folks are shifting around, things are shifting around, the landscape moves, and that ability to manage up was a game changer for me when I really figured out I always had more work than I had time. And when
Mhm.
I figured out how to cleanly communicate to my boss every week what I was prioritizing and what I could confidently commit my teams would deliver, and then what else I had on the list that was going to be best effort. It was a game changer for my boss and for me. So I'm with you. Managing up is a different skill, and it's so important when we are in ecosystems where there's more work than time.
Yeah, yeah, and I love what you said there, that
Yeah,
proactive approach of saying, "Here's the things we're doing, here's where we're gonna be may not get to this week, or we've had to deprioritize this," because at the end of the day, people just don't like surprises, but if you keep them
no,
informed and they feel like, "Oh, well, I know
right.
what's going on, I feel good there," then they tend to leave you to your own devices.
Well,
It's when you don't communicate and then you suddenly communicate bad news is when you suddenly get a forensic
right.
investigation.
I I'm sure everybody has a great boss, but every now and then you hit a boss who feels they've communicated something, but maybe they haven't, or maybe they forgot to let us
Mhm.
know about something. And when we do that proactive check in at the beginning of a week or beginning of a quarter, and we say, these are the priorities, this is what we're committing to, and it's visual and it's clear, that gives them, then we say, hey, does this look right? That gives them a
Yes.
chance to say, "Oh, shoot, forgot something. Let that and it really needs to be up in your top," or, "I would like to reorder this." And then it's a simple change on paper, right? Instead of pivoting an entire team off of one effort to something else. So
Yeah.
it's a lovely way to also help a leader who might be distracted or perhaps incomplete in their communications as well.
Yeah, because I mean, you're helping them as well because
Yeah.
you're being concise. But the other thing that you just you mentioned upon there, as well is, um, like I said, people don't like surprises. So if
They
if
do not.
if I say to you, "Here's what I need you to do,"
Mhm.
I would always say to people, if you really don't understand it, or you don't understand it clearly, or there's any gaps or whatever, you have to clarify things before you
Yep.
go off and start the project. Because
Right.
let's face it, what's the worst thing that can happen? You come back 2 weeks
Right.
later and they go,
Oh my god.
"Oh, John, I think you misunderstood what I was saying. This isn't at all what I wanted."
Wow. Yes. I had a great manager early in my career, and, she gave me an assignment at the beginning of the week, and it was due Friday. I got it to her Thursday afternoon early, right? And she was like, "Oh, wow, that was exactly not what I needed at all." And the 2 of us scrambled, and we fixed it.
Mhm.
But she and I talked about it later, and she was like, "I'd rather see, like, a dirty draft from you
Yeah.
within 24 hours." And so I've taught that to all of my teams. Like, if I give you something, come back to me within, like, 24 hours and say, "Okay, this is how I'm going at this. Am I on the right track?" And I might realize, like, "Oh, shoot, you're overcomplicating this. I just needed
Mhm.
this. I don't need this whole thing." Or I might realize, "Wow, actually, I was thinking more numbers than strategy. Can you do
Mhm.
a little more research for me?" But that fast response shows us as hardworking, but it also saves so much time.
It does, it does. The thing that I found too, and this is just a little tip for people. It may
Yeah,
seem, if you're with your manager or whatever, and you say, and they say, "Okay, have you got everything? Do you understand that?" If you say, "Well, no, actually, I don't. Sorry, I'm not." I have found that some people are afraid to say, like, "I don't understand," or "I didn't totally understand that."
yeah,
But I have found that when you say that, the onus goes back on the other person, and they normally start to go, "Oh, okay, listen, I didn't really explain myself properly."
yeah,
They take ownership of it.
right,
Generally speaking, not always, but
right.
generally speaking. So I think you have to have the confidence to literally just say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand. I don't understand this fully. I need a little bit more information."
And a way to play that back in with a different and a confident tone
Mhm,
is to say, "Let me play that back to you. You If I'm hearing you correctly, you said X then Y, and we should see, Z and A happen
mhm.
afterwards." And that shows, hey, I was listening to you right now. This is what I'm going to go do. But especially when I'm feeling like I'm not sure that I understand,
Yeah.
I will ask to play back. And it's like we're in the moment. It's a gracious way to let the other person know maybe I didn't get it all the way. But it just shows us as being capable people who are thinking in the moment.
Mhm. And I think it gives confidence then to that
Yes.
manager as you're walking out the door to go, "Oh, Christine's on the ball. She knows what she's doing. She asked a lot of great questions. She's on top of this. I leave the whole thing with more confidence than if you had just said, "Yep, got everything. Thanks," and went out the door. I'd be like,
John, have
"Did
you
you?"
ever had somebody tell you, "Yep, I got it," and they leave the call or the meeting and you're like, "Oh, I don't think they
Yeah,
do."
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Too many
Uh-huh.
times. Yeah, too many times. And then you're
Yep.
like, and sometimes I think as my career got on, I was sometimes like, maybe come back in for a second. Well, listen, Christine, this has been fascinating, fascinating discussion. All of Christine's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about what you do.
Sure. I'm a management consultant. My company is Deliver at Scale, and that is exactly what I do. So I come into teams that have usually clear vision, clear mission, working really hard, but not hitting the number or they've
Mhm.
stalled out. I work either directly with leaders or I'll work with leadership teams. And I love the work that I do. I speak at conferences, I write books, and I'm a lucky person to do what I love.
Yeah, and it comes across. So
Thanks.
again, I would absolutely encourage you to go check out Christine's book,
Thank
um,
you.
because it's one of the greatest points of failure in organizations is people getting promoted into management positions and not
I agree.
being and having no training, having no idea what they're doing. And many companies aren't going to help you. So you got to help yourself. That's the other thing is like, don't outsource your career and everything to fate. Like take
Right.
control of it. Like if you're promoted, you got to go buy the book, do your own research. There's plenty of resources out there.
I agree. And most people in their first year of managing a team make mistakes.
Yeah.
And most of us all made the same mistakes. And the second year that we're a manager, we're much better. So
Hmm.
whatever we can do to tighten up that timeline, if we can deliver well in the first year because we picked up some
Hmm.
practical tactics,
Yeah.
it makes a difference for our career, but it also makes a big difference for our team and our company.
Absolutely. Well said. Okay, perfect point to end on. So thanks again, Christine. Thank you for
Thank you,
watching and
John.
listening.